Hi, and welcome to Under the Dome from the City of Pearl. I'm Therese Apel, the Public Information Director, and we are here with Representative Gene Newman, and we have a very special guest for you today. We've got Ag Commissioner Andy Gibson sitting here to my left.
How y'all doing?
We are so excited to have him here. We're going to talk a little bit about the legislature, but we're also going to talk about a whole basket full of other things that are affecting the Ag Commissioner's office, that kind of thing, that you might be interested in as well.
Right.
So, how's your day going?
Going great. You know, it's summertime. The farmers markets are in full swing, and we're kicking off some special markets at our farmers market in Jackson on High Street. We open out Thursday and Saturday. We are certifying all the farmers markets that are locally grown, raised, crafted, and made right here in Mississippi. And it's the growing season. In fact, my own tomatoes are coming in. It's hard to keep up with them this time of year, and we're thankful for that. Mississippi is so blessed to have the food production we have. Produce, of course, but not just produce. There's a whole lot more, from our poultry, which is our largest industry, chicken, beef and pork and soybeans, and even corn and cotton in the Delta. It's everywhere. We got it all right here in Mississippi.
All right, yeah, and we've got Representative Newman here, and he's kind of the impetus in this meeting here. He brought you here today.
Thank you for having me.
How are things going for you now that the legislature is done?
I'm just thankful it's over for the time.
Amen. Amen.
I love doing it, but 125 days of doing it's a long time.
That's right.
I'm thankful it's over, but we're hearing a lot of stuff about the food supply right now. One of the grocery stores, I think, is trying to sell stuff that's supposed to be from California, and it's turn it over and it says it's made in China. So the thing about Commissioner is that he makes sure that our farms and our produce stands and everything where we sell food is genuine Mississippi.
That's right.
Great. Well, and that's something that I think is important that, I know that until I really became a full-grown adult, I didn't think about that. I just went to the grocery store and just bought apples if I wanted apples. What you're doing with the farmers market, talk to me about that. Talk to me about how that helps Mississippi's farmers and the people that are actually out there trying to produce food for us that is from here in the state.
Well, I want to just cut to the chase and say local food supply is the biggest issue that we face as a state and as a country. I believe that with all my heart. It's been a passion of mine to increase our availability of local food, and that's why we've launched some of the initiatives that we have to help our farmers markets and produce stands and so forth have more access. We've got a website, Gene said, Genuine Mississippi. Go to www.genuinems.com. and you can shop and buy everything grown, raised, crafted, and made locally grown right here in Mississippi. And when we do that, we're not only helping our families, eating healthy, local food, fresh food, but we're also helping our local economies, because these are homegrown businesses. These are farmers, these are business people that have a product to sell. It may be produce, it may be meat products, it may be a home-baked pie, for example, crafted products. And in some cases, we even have manufactured products that we have as a state. So my job, one of my main jobs, is to promote our Genuine Mississippi program to make sure we have all the local supply that we need for our people and more. We saw what happens when we don't have that back during COVID-19. You remember you could not buy the meat products that you wanted to buy because some plant out in the Midwest had shut down. And here we were, and we've learned that our supply chain, although it is huge and expansive, it's very vulnerable to these types of interruptions. So ever since COVID back in 2020, I have really been focused on trying to find a way to bring back strengthening and making our local food supply chain stronger and more resilient. And we're excited about that. What is missing? We have lots of fresh produce. We have lots of fresh product. What we're missing in our supply chain, and it's nobody's fault, it's just kind of the way things have evolved over time with the Walmartization of America. What we're missing is that middle supply chain of taking the fresh product, processing it, freezing it, canning it, packing it, storing it up. We do not have a food storage capacity in this state beyond just a day or two at a time. Think about that. And the same can be said for the whole United States of America. I went to a conference last September, and what really got my attention was this banker from CoBank. He put a presentation on the wall. Where does our food come from in America? Decade by decade, he went back to the 1940s, 1950s, and for the most part, Gene mentioned California. California has been the powerhouse of produce and food product, and the West and the Midwest. But what's happening the last 3 or 4 decades is the water is drying up. Environmental regulations are making it harder and harder for people to grow anything out there. And so he predicted, and I didn't talk to him before the meeting, but his prediction was that in the next 20 or 30 years, the food supply for this country would be headquartered in the southeastern United States because of our abundant water resources. That is why my vision is, even before that meeting, but especially since then, we can make Mississippi the headquarters of food storage, processing, and distribution, and really be the nucleus of the food supply of this country if we'll take some strategic steps. So supporting our local farmers, we all want to go buy local, buy what you can, put it up in your freezer, but at a larger scale, what we need is to take the product in mass and to process it and freeze it and store it and then distribute it to our local grocery stores, to our local restaurants, to our local farmers markets for that matter. And that is going to not only help us as a state to feed our own people in times of crisis, in times of emergency, in times of natural disaster, we'll have that food supply. But it's also going to help our economy. It's going to double for our farmers the market for their product. Instead of just fresh product when it's in season, we'll have that product put back for the off season. You know, we have a growing season here in Mississippi from the spring until the fall, but in the wintertime, you're not going to find fresh or Mississippi tomatoes. In fact, we don't even can tomatoes in this state anymore. We need to bring that back, canned products, and have that as a resource for our people in addition to as growing the local economy. Agriculture is still the biggest piece of Mississippi's economy, and this process, a strategic agriculture facilities expansion plan, is going to double that economic impact, and it's going to help our farmers and help our local communities. And I'm a firm believer, and Representative Newman and I have talked about this in the past, having that food supply. I mean, we didn't dream this up. You can find it in the Bible, with Joseph in the Bible, when God gave him a dream of 7, he gave Pharaoh a dream of 7 good years and 7 hard years. And to have the vision to plan in the good times for the hard times, because who knows when they may come again. Right.
Well, and when you were saying that, I kind of had a thought of one of the things I've said about news for a long time is that it got real big and it, went corporate, and then now it's coming back to local. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that could be happening too in situations like this. Do we see in our future a place where either we have local grocery stores again, or potentially we have the ability for our farmers to sell straight to somewhere like a Kroger or a Walmart?
We absolutely do. And that is why this spring, we announced this new development over in Rankin County. It's our first, it won't be our last. I expect we'll have one in the central, one in the north, and one in the south, but a local food hub for that very purpose, to bring product, to process it, to package it, and then to ship it out to local suppliers, local retailers, local grocery stores, and restaurants. The demand is there. People want to buy local. We just don't have that food hub where, for example, trucks can roll in and get a load of, I'm just using tomatoes here a lot today, but a load of fresh tomatoes to go to put on salads at Outback Steakhouse or something like that. This food hub is going to create that, and it's also going to create food resiliency for our people as a state.
Well, and I feel like that's something that, as a small business owner myself, I want to support those people that are living the same life that I am, that are trying to make it on their own, based on their own hard work. I feel like that could actually help other, restaurants and things like that, because I am excited to go to somewhere that's using locally grown food.
That's right. We have a huge demand, and we see a huge success in it with people going to produce stands, buying local fresh food when it's in season. That is going to continue. That is going to grow. I'll give you an example of that. 10 years ago, I think we had 30 certified farmers markets in the state of Mississippi that were proven to be genuine Mississippi, locally raised produce. Now we have over 100. We have one in every county. So that proves you the demand of the local people who want to buy that local product. What we're missing, as I mentioned, is that supply chain component that's going to take that product on a mass scale, pack it, and then distribute it out all during the year, throughout the entire year from January to December and all in between.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing we talked about before we got started, and I think in a question, you know, we've got a situation here now in Hinds County, first of all, where we've got, you know, outside influences coming in to do other things with our farmland and paying top dollar to take our farmland and use it for things like solar farms. In that specific situation, I know I have friends that live in that area that have farms in that area that are very concerned.
Yeah.
How do we, at this time, with this being our goal to kind of bring food production back to Mississippi, how do we combat these, for lack of a better term, these invaders?
Well, we are really facing some headwinds on this, and it's coming from the federal government, all right? Congress passed a few years ago, and the Biden administration has put in place these incentives, and they're called green energy incentives. And it sounds good, but when you get down to the details, the bottom line is, in many cases, such as the solar farms, you're taking the most valuable resource that we have as a country, which is farmland, and you're converting it into a solar farm, not just for 1 year, not to try it a year and see if it works, but for 30 years. So you're idling this farmland for 30 years at a time on a massive scale across our country. To give you and I'm deeply concerned about it, and I'm very, very, very involved in and about to engage on this issue at a larger level. But to give you an example, if the world were the size of an apple, everybody knows how big an apple is. Take your thumbprint, put it on that apple. That is the maximum amount of farmable land in the world to feed our people today. And it's only getting smaller. I mean, most of the world is ocean. Most of the world is not farmable land. I live in a place where we've got hills and hollers. You know, you can't farm there on the scale that we have, for example, in the Delta. Now you've got solar companies, some of whom are owned and controlled by foreigners, a lot of whom are invested in by foreigners, coming in here, paying huge sums of money with federal tax incentives and allocations of federal dollars to shut down farmland. So that thumbprint every day is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Add to that environmental regulations from the federal EPA, from some states like California. I mean, I think California's decided they don't want to farm anymore, you know. I mean, that's going to wind up being a good thing for Mississippi because we're going to keep farms going in this state. But what we cannot combat is some fly-by-night solar company coming in here and say, hey, Mr. Farmer, I'll pay you 5 times per acre what you'd make on your farm if you'll just sign here and let us build a solar farm. This stuff hasn't been studied. It's highly inefficient when it comes to energy. It's about 10% efficiency when it comes to energy production as compared to, say, natural gas or some conventional production of energy. And you're shutting down the best farmland in the state and in our country. It's happening everywhere. I'm aware of the project in Hinds County. It's not the only one. There are projects that are trying to go in, not only solar, but turbine, wind farms. And it's deeply concerning to me that at the same time we recognize the food supply challenges to feed a growing world population. These forces are coming in going the opposite direction. It's almost, it almost seems like a conspiracy theory. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's enough going on here that makes you wonder who's trying to shut down our food supply as a state. Now in Mississippi, agriculture is the single biggest part of our economy. $9 billion of food production and commodity production, farm gate value just last year, and it's growing. But the more these things come in and take hold, I'm very concerned it's going to have an adverse long-term impact on our overall food security as a country. And that, not to mention foreigners coming in here buying up our farmland.
And then the other thing that we don't know about these things is what happens when, those things have chemicals in them that cause a reaction to produce electricity.
right.
We have no idea what's going to happen when you have a Mississippi hailstorm and it beats one of those things that's got 7,000 or 8,000 acres to pulverize it and dumps all that chemical into the ground. What's it going to do to the groundwater? What's going to happen from all that?
It's going to poison it. That's
Yeah.
what's going to happen. I'm afraid. If we studied it long enough, we'd find out. Now, the law on these things is, and I've studied this for years now because I get asked every time one comes to town, what can I do? Well, I don't have any authority to do anything about it other than the Department of Environmental Quality for large projects has a say in groundwater impact and so forth, and I do have a voting member on that board. But the law is it's up to the local board of supervisors. So your local boards of supervisors in Hinds County or wherever they may be are the individuals, there's 5 in every county, they have the power to decide, are we going to allow this land use for this purpose or not? And that's, you know, if you know anything about Mississippi, you know we have some really good supervisors and we have some that are not so great.
And not to throw any shade on the supervisor in that area in Hinds County, but one of the residents did tell me that she went to that supervisor who said, oh, I didn't know there were farms out there. I didn't know people lived out there.
Wow.
So, you know, you're looking at a situation too. One of the things they brought up, very much like you said, is when a tornado comes through and takes half this thing out, and how long is it going to take them to rebuild, and what's the impact there? But also the energy fields that come off something like this. They're very worried about what that alone will do to the neighboring community and that kind of thing.
And if I lived there, I'd be asking, what's it going to do to my climate, to the temperature level here? I mean, I've been through some areas in Texas where it's always hot all the time, but these things are just radiating all this heat. It's extremely concerning, and for the quality of life, in addition to our food supply, I think it's worth. We don't need to do anything hasty on this, and I would encourage every supervisor, every member of a board of supervisors to be very careful and get all the facts that they can before making a decision on this.
Sure. Well, and I understand it's the Board of Supervisors that, you know, right now have the final say. But Gene, is there anything the legislature can do in something like this?
I don't know. That's an answer for lawyers, which for those that don't know, our agricultural commissioner is an attorney. So
Thank you.
he was chairman of Judd B. in the House at one point before he became agricultural commissioner. He understands. He's got a better grasp of the laws than most people do. I will give him very much credit for that.
Well, thank you.
He always did a great job as chairman when he was in the House, and if he says he's studying something, trust me, he's studying it.
Yeah.
But the question is, where if we try to do something with the legislature with this, and I have full intentions of, I know people that are working on it. What can we do until we get intertwined with federal law and what's going on there? That's going to be the issue.
I think the bottom line, the legislature, every legislature in this country could pass a law, but as long as these federal incentives are out there, these green energy policies, until that's reversed, these things are just going to keep popping up like like whack-a-mole. You knock one down, you knock one down. What's driving it is this billions and billions of dollars that are being thrown at this to say, hey, we don't know what it'll do, but give it a try. They're saying, give it a try on our farmland across America. You know, we've got an election coming up, a presidential election that could have a huge impact one way or another. I mean, if the Biden administration goes back in, we know what we're dealing with, and maybe at that point the states are really going to have to step up our game on this. But if we have a Trump administration, I feel like we'll have relief at the federal level. But we can't ignore the federal policy that's creating this issue. And it's not just solar, it's wind, it's all kind of interesting projects that are having a, I learned about one in Louisiana. I mean, it was really the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The federal government is paying, I forget how many hundreds of billions of dollars to build a new pipeline to pump carbon dioxide out of the air into a hole in the ground where it will never, ever, ever escape carbon dioxide. And this company is being paid billions of dollars to do this. Carbon dioxide that plants love to eat, that trees love to eat, and that we're paying, our federal government has come up with this idea to build these massive air-sucking contraptions, suck carbon dioxide, pump it in the hole in the ground. That's the kind of thing exactly similar to what's happening with this solar project. Nobody knows what it'll do, what impact it'll have, but they sure are throwing the federal dollars at it.
And it costs about 25 cents to plant a tree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We need, we got plenty of trees that would love to eat that carbon dioxide. But it's a gimmick. I studied this enough to know the corporations that are involved in this. They're getting tax credits. For example, not going to call any airline, but I happen to know an airline that's every day flying airplanes, blowing, jet fuel into there. The way they're doing this, they're getting this huge tax credit by simply doing one of these solar projects, and then say we're offsetting they're saying they're offsetting. You're killing yourself. I mean, you're killing plants, and you're blowing carbon dioxide, and you're saying you're green energy, and carbon neutral. That's what the gimmick is. It needs to stop at the federal level. Yeah.
Well, I apologize that I smile every time you say green energy, but I have an old friend. He's an old farmer, and he told me one time. He said, "You want to know what green energy really is?" He said, "Everybody talks about green energy. You want to know what the only green energy really is, where you can see it." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Go home, sit down on your couch, turn on Little House on the Prairie. The way they lived, that is the only actual green energy that works for what we say we're trying to do."
That's right.
And
a brown cow eats green grass, makes red meat, gives white milk, and churns yellow butter.
That's right.
Green energy, right there.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, and so of course we've kind of mentioned the Democrats' role in some of this, and obviously we try not to go partisan politics, but sometimes you just can't help it. I do want to ask you about the fair coming up is always a big deal, and we're not that far from it, because I know once it gets hot, it feels like it gets super hot, and then the next day it's the fair. So.
It's October 3rd through the 13th. We start planning that fair right after the last one ends, and we've got a great fair coming up. October the 3rd, it'll kick off. We always pray for cooler weather, and October sometimes we'll deliver that, sometimes it won't. But it is the state's largest agricultural event. We have young people from all over Mississippi, from every race and every background. They're showing their livestock, the best of the best. They're competing, and then they want to come back at the Dixie National to get in that Junior Roundup show. And then around that, we have the carnival and all the other activities. And we had some news this week. A group, I'll just say the Mississippi Democrat Party called for a boycott of the state fair because I supported Donald Trump. And I think that's interesting, but I just want to invite everybody to come on out to the Mississippi State Fair, October 3rd through the 13th. We're going to have it. It's going to be great. We have an exciting lineup coming, and always good rides and a good time. And I go every day because I'm giving out biscuits, fresh, hot, homemade buttermilk biscuits, paid for by our sponsors at the biscuit booth. And I know Representative Newman will be over there, and we're going to be there supporting the state fair. It's about agriculture, so I think that boycott is ridiculous, and I can say it's about as ridiculous as the charges brought against Donald Trump in New York City. And I'll leave it at that, all right?
there's three things that you have to go to the state fair for. Number one is taffy.
Malone's taffy.
Taffy's been down there forever. A biscuit. And then you walk from, when you leave the biscuit, you kind of just angle across there about 30 yards, and the Mississippi Cattlemen's Association.
I knew you were going to say that.
Ribeye sandwich. That's
Ribeye
right.
sandwich.
Andy Berry and his team, and Andy's now senator, state senator, and he'll be there. And they always volunteer cattlemen come up cooking those ribeye sandwiches, and those funds go to support scholarships at the Cattlemen's Association.
And then you can leave right there, and you can step right over there and go right through the animal displays, and it's a good time.
That's right.
I think it's worth saying that I can't think of a time that I have been to the fair, or as a reporter that I've covered the fair, that I haven't made memories that I'll carry forever.
Yeah.
Whether it was when I was a kid and I was in 6th grade was the first time I'd ever been to the fair. We had just moved to Mississippi. Or the year I was working for a local TV station and I interviewed a goat. We actually took a picture of me and did video of me talking to a goat. The different things like that, going with my friends, the food, the atmosphere, the tents that have the animals in them, that kind of thing. It's such a part of Mississippi. And I think as we've talked, we forget sometimes that Mississippi, we have a reputation out there for being country.
We are.
and that's because we are, you know.
We like it.
Yeah, we do.
And I think these things kind of are indicative of the persona of our state.
And I tell people this: if you want to know who the future leaders of this state are, you come to the state fair. You walk through those livestock barns. You go to the rides, enjoy all that, eat the taffy. It's great. But you walk through those livestock barns and you see those young people. These are 4-H, FFA youth. They get up every morning, feed their animals, they tend them, they brush them, they care for them, and then they come proudly to display them and exhibit them at the state fair. These are your future leaders in the state of Mississippi, and we'll have them at the fair from every county all over the state, and a whole lot more of them at the Dixie National in February.
You know, and one thing I love about those kids is it's not just about the work ethic they develop, but if you love animals, that builds a compassion in you that I think you have to be a good leader.
Yeah.
So it's not just the learning how to structure your life, but it's also building your character.
Yeah.
You know.
You make a decision. These kids make a decision. I'm going to do this project. I'm going to raise this animal, and then they have to do the work every day. It's not you just take a day off. Somebody's got to feed the stock. Somebody's got to water the animals. They do it, they commit, and they are successful in life. And we have a track record of showing that for these young people who graduate and move on. And we hope and pray that they'll stay in Mississippi and raise a family here and have a career here. And that's the cream of the crop in my book are these 4-H and FFA livestock youth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I've asked all my questions. Is there anything you guys would want to talk about that I have missed?
I think I appreciate the legislature. The legislature was, they had a lot of big issues on their plate this year, a lot of tough issues. And that's always the case in the year after an election year. There are some hard things that have to be done. I commend them for doing what needed to be done. They, I didn't have an agenda this year. I knew it would be a busy year on other bases. And they were good to the Department of Agriculture. We appreciate y'all's support. The budget that you approve for us allows us to have the types of events such as the Mississippi State Fair, such as the Dixie National Rodeo, and a whole lot of other big events, and all the work that we do from consumer protection all the way down to farmers markets and so forth. So I thank y'all for that. I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate y'all. Y'all make a lot of difference in a lot of lives. People don't really realize just exactly what the Department of Agriculture actually encompasses. But when you drive up and buy gas,
Yep.
The knowledge that gas pump is actually giving you a gallon for what you pay for it, they have vehicles that go around and check those every day. They're checking gas stations all over the state every day. They look for the proper labeling on products that are sold. We have laws about if it's not from Mississippi or if it's not real meat, those kind of things.
That's right.
They take care of all that. I can't even think of everything y'all do.
Grocery stores and your meat case and your dairy case, consumer protection. We check those grocery scanners to make sure they're ringing up. Every scale that's used to sell anything in commerce, we test those once a year. So any of those issues, if you have any problem, you call our department, and the number's listed on the little sticker that we put on each one of these inspections. So if you have an issue, you call that number. We'll send somebody there today to check it out. Guarantee you.
And in addition to all the stuff they do with agriculture, it's also the Department of Agriculture and Commerce. So he's responsible for promoting the state. That we think the governor does it, and he does a very good job of it, but he's also charged with promoting the businesses of the state, not just agricultural business, but all the businesses. But he's especially like our timber markets, which has been decimated by the drought last year. But he's responsible for all that. Just things that you don't think about normally that department is concerned with. I don't know how he keeps up with it all.
Well, I just got back from India, the world's largest country and the world's largest market, because 1 out of every 3 acres of our production in Mississippi goes to an international market. So we do international trade that helps our farmers as well. We want to sell them our products. We want to have enough for ourselves, and also we feed a lot of people around the world, and we want to keep agriculture strong, and commerce is part of that. So thank you all for your support, and And I hope that the legislature has a more normal session in 2025. In 2025, that's the best way I can say it.
Right.
It'll be a 90-day session. That'll help.
That'll help a whole lot.
When you're down there 125 days, that's too long. It's too long. And that everybody, when I was in the legislature, we all knew it was too long.
And it was the whole 125 days.
It was.
We kept
Full
going, cut
blown.
it short, cut it short.
That's
We
right.
never did make it.
Yeah. Thank you for what y'all do, and keep up the good work. Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to the people and let them know what's going on. So
Glad to do it.
I'd love to have you back anytime.
We're excited to do it, glad to, and like I said, I want to make sure everybody knows, you're invited to the Mississippi State Fair October 3rd through the 13th. It'll be here before you know it. See y'all soon.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys both for joining us. Obviously, it's always a pleasure, Gene. And I'm sorry, Representative.
That's right.
Gene's good.
Commissioner Gibson,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your being here
Thank
too.
you so much.
And to all of you that are watching, we really appreciate you guys as well. Thank you for joining us today, and obviously we'll be back next week, but I always enjoy getting to do these things because I learn, and I hope you do too. So again, from the City of Pearl, this is Under the Dome. I'm Therese Apel.